A very warm welcome to OmniFocus Workflows with William Gallagher, and really excited to have William here today. I first learned of him when he was on the Omni Show, the Omni Groups podcast, and was definitely very keen to have a chat with him and to have him on Learn OmniFocus. So I'm very grateful that he accepted my invitation. And I'm going to formally introduce William in just a moment. But before then, just wanted to talk a little bit about Learn OmniFocus for those of you who are brand new to this site. It started back in June of 2014, kind of a bit of an experiment. I didn't know if there would be kind of enough interest or enough material, things like that, to justify the sites. But I very early on realized that there was both interest and plenty of content to share, and have had people join from 88 countries at this point, and really enjoy connecting with our global membership. And the intention with Learn OmniFocus is to live a fulfilling and productive life with some help from OmniFocus, and you'll see in brackets, and complementary productivity apps. And I realized that OmniFocus is an important piece of the system, but it is just one piece of the system. There's other apps, kind of its partners in crime, that really help to fulfill on that fulfilling and productive life. So I talk a lot about OmniFocus, and I also feature a lot of third-party apps as well. And I think William is going to be talking about a couple as we go through today. And I also really stress the importance of having an understanding of productivity methodologies, productivity theories. As I like to say, owning a calculator doesn't make you a mathematician. You still need a strategy for making good use of the wonderful technology we have. So that's very much a core part of Learn OmniFocus as well, as to teach those skills and to have them be part of our conversations that we have. And so there's 4 components to Learn OmniFocus Live. There's the productivity themes. So those are the ones where we get into more of the kind of the soft skills related to productivity, get into the key concepts that allow you to make really good use of OmniFocus and other tools. As I mentioned, we also feature apps, and sometimes an app will get its own session, its own course. So we've featured apps like Daylight and MindNode and Drafts and Asana, and just look at how they fit into the overall sort of network of tools and how they work alongside OmniFocus. And then we've had many workflow guests over the years, and this is always one of the highlights of the work that I do, is welcoming these guests, and I certainly learn a lot from them as well. And it really emphasizes that OmniFocus is a personal productivity task manager. It's not something that you need to use the same way that anybody else uses. You can really make it your own. And every single guest and everybody I've had contact with has had at least a slightly different take on how to use OmniFocus. So I invite you to take what guests like William share and take what's really useful for you. Maybe try some of the things that he's going to be showing today, and just kind of see what ultimately becomes the productivity system that's most personal to you. And then lastly, interactive group sessions are where you really get to know people within our community face to face. And we have a couple of ones in this category. I'm actually thinking of adding a third probably this fall. And one is the office hour sessions, where they're small group confidential sessions, maximum 10 people. And you can come and get some inspiration, get some questions asked, learn from myself and other people. And then more recently, I launched the virtual co-working sessions that have been getting rave reviews from our members. So I'll just briefly talk about those before we move on to our feature presentation for today. So office hours, as I mentioned, these are small group sessions, and I typically offer them 3 or 4 times a month. And I vary the days and times as much as possible to accommodate different time zones and so forth. So there's currently 5 open for registration, and you're very welcome to attend this. Even if you're fairly new to OmniFocus, even if you're an OmniFocus guru, I think you'll find there's something available regardless. And then virtual co-working, this is an opportunity to actually come and work alongside other Learn OmniFocus members and actually get the things done that you've captured into OmniFocus. people will often use these sessions for things that they are important, things that they'd really like to put some time and energy into, but they don't tend to find the time to do them. So this is a way of actually setting aside some time in your calendar, creating some accountability around the process and so forth. So they consist of 3 25-minute focus sessions. So this is when you're focusing on whatever work is important to you, or if you want to practice your ukulele during these, that's fine as well. So it's a time to really, really focus in and to build your ability to focus. It's a little bit like going to the gym in that sense. And then we have a welcome. There's a small group check-in at the beginning where you can get to know other people. You can share what you're up to during this time. We have check-ins within the in between the focus sessions, and then there's an opportunity to kind of share what you learned from this process, where you got distracted, what allowed you to focus, those sorts of things. So even when you're not in a virtual co-working session, you've got a good sense of what works and what doesn't work. And to add a social element, there's a optional 10-minute lounge before and after. So if you just want to come and hang out and talk about OmniFocus or pretty much anything else, this is just nice kind of social time. So just if you wanted to learn more and register, you can go to learnomnifocus.com/virtual-coworking. And I just wanted to briefly share a couple of testimonials from a couple of our regulars in the focus sessions. So Jennifer in Alaska says, Learn OmniFocus co-working environment provides the right combination of accountability, camaraderie, and shared commitment to growth and getting things done. And then Adam says, I love the virtual co-working sessions. They really prompted me to make a goal for each of my 25-minute times 3 work times and have some accountability to my small and large groups. Then I put some music on, hunker down, and get to work. And I love meeting new and interesting people. And there's always lots of interesting people to meet within these sessions. If you would like to share a testimonial, if you've been really getting a lot of benefit from any aspect of Learn OmniFocus, I'd appreciate it if you go to learnomnifocus.com/thumbs up. And there's a form you can submit a written audio or video testimonial there. So the virtual co-working sessions, there's 2 more this month, and then there's 3 scheduled for August. And again, I try to vary the days and times as much as possible. And then one last thing in the coming soon section, the next section is going to feature an approach called holistic productivity. And this is something I actually developed when I was going through cancer treatments back in 2008. And I was in definitely a very, very different mode of life. You're really struggling with the disease and learning a lot from going through this process. And holistic productivity is essentially an encapsulation of the insights that I got as I was going through this process, as I was in this radically different perspective. And it essentially takes the view of life as multifaceted by nature. In a sense, there is no such thing as work life and home life and family life and these things. There's just life with all its different facets. And the idea is if you create a positive shift in one area of life, it's going to positively impact all of the other areas in a very kind of organic sort of way. And sometimes the area that needs the attention is not necessarily the area you would most first identify. So if someone's really struggling at work, maybe the tendency is to put even more time and energy into work. Whereas in practice, maybe it would be more useful to focus on health and improve the quality of life or do things to reduce stress, which would make the effectiveness of work that much more. So during this session, I'll be taking you through the holistic productivity principles, including the 4 pillars on which it's built. And it'll be an interactive session. You'll get an opportunity to look at your own life and to how OmniFocus relates to all of that and complementary tools. So really looking forward to this one. It'll be on September 14th. And that's a 90-minute session starting at 10 o'clock Pacific time. So hope to see all of you there. And just lastly, there's a couple of blog posts on the Learn OmniFocus blog talking about OmniFocus 4 and its current state. And the short version is it's really come a long way and continuing to pay very close attention to the development. I've been submitting a lot of feedback as well, and really looking forward to having some content ready to go very soon after the lunch. And just rest assured, all of the investments you're putting into OmniFocus 3 and kind of fine tuning your database and so forth, that'll carry over to OmniFocus 4 as well. So you'll be well primed for this new version. Okay, and now it's my pleasure to introduce William Gallagher. And he's joining us from the middle of England in Birmingham. He's very active within the writing community in England as both a writer and a leader within this community. He's given many, many talks over, I think he's up to in the hundreds, I forget the exact number, but many, many talks over the years. So he definitely has a lot going on. He's really very productive fellow, and given all of the writing credits and the differences he's made within the writing community. So he's going to share how he gets it all done with some help from OmniFocus and some other apps. So really, really looking forward to learning more about his process. I encourage you to check out his blog at williamgallagher.com. And he also has a very popular YouTube channel at youtube.com/William Gallagher. And this is geared towards writers, but I often watch his videos and I find there's a lot of value that I get as well. And he's definitely a tech enthusiast, and he talks a lot about the emerging technologies and how to make them work effectively. He's even got a video on how to create your own on-air thing. I think I need one of those for outside my office here. So I definitely encourage you to give that a go. And you can also follow William on Twitter. It's @WGallagher. All right. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to William.
I have some ado for you, actually. One of them is this. Thank you very much for having me here. But as well as just getting to do this with you and things, OmniFocus, for 10 years or more, OmniFocus has been mine, and no one else is around me and things. And you've got this entire community that you've created. And apart from the fact that you just implied that you're not a writer, and you so clearly are, I think you've done an amazing thing there. And if you do get one of those on-air lights, fasten it to the wall better than I did, because it fell off on my head at one point. So that's really not what I came here to tell you about, is it? I obviously want to talk about OmniFocus because I'm life support dependent on it. Just in the last few days, I've been appointed Deputy Chair of the Writers Guild here in the UK. And the first job was to send out 80 emails to different people, kind of similar ones, but it's like a big project I've suddenly got on, and that's on top of everything else I'm already doing. And yet OmniFocus lets me think, well, today, if I do these 3 things, I keep going on it. It lets me focus. That's why they call it that. I don't really think I spend enough time reviewing things in it. I'm forever piling things in, and I want to show you the different ways I do that, which I suspect you already know. And if you see better ways, I'd be grateful for you telling me other things. And then I do some reviews, and then there's how you actually get things done each day, which that's a GTD thing, isn't it? It's capture, process, review. That's how I'd like to have a go at this. But I realized actually the very first thing, I write a lot for AppleInsider.com, and they live on Slack. And I did actually set it up so that if I'm asked something over Slack, if I star it, then it automatically goes into OmniFocus. Once I set it up, I've forgotten I've done it, actually. I realized today I haven't used it in ages. I still do more than anything else sitting at the Mac, just the quick entry thing. Get it out of my head, whack it in as fast as possible. And I think beyond that, the next most common thing is mail drop. I get so many tasks through email. Do you know, maybe you know this one, it was new to me. If I have a thing that if I get an email, it rarely asks me to do one thing. There's usually 3 or 4 parts. And I could just chuck the lot into OmniFocus, but instead I will take a moment to highlight the paragraph for the first thing and then hit forward. And then it sends in that email, but only that bit of the text. And then I'll highlight the next one and I'll forward that. And the result is I end up in OmniFocus with 4 or 5 different tasks from the same source but it means as I do each one, I can tick them off as done. It's never this going in to check, have I finished everything? I know it's done and I know it's gone. And that helps me hugely with this kind of thing. I've been trying to find faster ways to do things. And there's one thing actually unfortunately, I can't show you partly because I'm on the beta test for OmniFocus 4, but I'm also accidentally on the macOS Ventura thing, and there's some things missing in different bits. I have the whizziest shortcut I've ever written in my life, and I can't quite show it to you, but I can show you the end result. I do a lot of workshops for different places. It's over 900 now in about 10 years. I don't know why I started counting 10 years ago. It was a literary festival. I was very proud to be asked on there. So literary festival was number 1. And I think this will be very proudly 955 or something like that. But part of the workshop thing is it tends to be that there are 3 or 4 companies that each ask me to do somewhere between 2 and 6 different types of workshops. And they tend to want me to go. A lot of it's online now, but there'll be different cities with it. So I could be out somewhere on a job or at a Writers Guild meeting. I'll be phoned and asked to do something. The answer is always yes to everything. You check the calendar first. We check yes. Then I just need to know which workshop, which city am I going to, and the date. I run a shortcut that asks me those questions, and then it flings everything off into OmniFocus. But I mean everything. Let's see if I can show you one. Right, there is a particular workshop I might do for that company, the Federation of Entertainment Unions here in the UK. If you remember the Writers Guild or the National Union of Journalists or the Musicians Guild, you're also a member of the FEU. So I do run workshops that for all of these people. And I love it to pieces. But what I love most is I've captured 3 pieces of information, and OmniFocus has got 15, including when has it got to be run, but also invoice the day after, travel arrangements about 2 weeks before. And in this particular company's case, there's a certain document they need, a certain handout they want written. I think it's about 10 days before, and OmniFocus tells me that. As it comes to each day, I know this is the bit I've got to do, and it's very satisfying when you do the last one here, which is 30 days after the invoice, check that it's been paid. A freelance writer since 1994, and not, to be honest, not very good with money. So I have to have little reminders to check things like this. But more than having the reminders so that I don't have to think about remembering them, with a shortcut like this, I don't even have to think about them at all. They're just done for me and they're entered in. And I love that. I find the speed of it is convenient, really, when I'm running around. But even here in my own office, if I'm working away and a call comes through, I need to get back to what I'm writing right now. And I can be actually very excited about the workshop coming up. I need to get it out of my head as fast as possible. And a quick button, a quick answer does it for me. So that does it for workshops. And I love that so much. I'm trying to do a lot more. So, for example, if I do, right, Alfred. If I run Alfred and the SC workflow for new 58 Keys episode, it'll come and ask me what the short title is. So if I do, that's it, done. I've thought of an idea. It's more than an idea. If I just have, I should do an episode on, then I have an ideas pot that I'll chuck it into as a quick entry. But when I know it's going to be an episode, I know I'm going to make it, I just run that, I do it. And you may have just seen it pop up here. 58 Keys, 175. Oh, that's awful. I'm so sorry. Right over the typing mistake. That shortcut looks up the number of the last one. I have a text file on my Mac in iCloud Drive. It grabs that text, updates the number, saves it back, and then creates all of these parts for what I need. In OmniFocus, and at the same time, it goes off and it creates 5 folders in iCloud Drive and the original, the basic script template, which is an OmniOutliner document, in the right place for it. So when I don't put any dates on it, because most of the time I just need to make it and then decide to schedule it. But I can go through and decide on Mondays I will do this. And I will occasionally do that later as part of the kind of review process for it. I'm really ridiculously proud of the fact that it works out the number of the last one, because it took me hours to work out. So please look impressed at that. Or if you know a better way to do it, since I realize I've just wrecked it, haven't I? It's now going to tell me the next real one is 176, unless I figure it out a bit better. Okay. So that's a mail drop, quick entry, sort of Slack. I'll probably use it more now that I've remembered it to tell you. Definitely lots of things to do with shortcuts. I have more and more shortcuts that I can't use at the moment because of things not working on the two. But they are my favorite bits. Let me just go to the forecast view. Can I show you this? I tend to live in forecast more than perspectives a lot. But if you look at this, you see the times here. Well, they've gone red now because in my time zone, it's about 25 past 6 in the evening. I used to have OmniFocus. What's the default time for a task in OmniFocus? Whatever it was, I would wake up early in the morning and all my tasks would be red. So I changed the default time to 5 o'clock. So they're all nice and yellow and I don't feel very pressured, but they're still on the day and I'll still get them done. I don't tend to rely on OmniFocus for timed events. There are certain things I have to do at certain times, and I will do that. Or sometimes I'll use due as an extra reminder if it's really urgent that it has to happen at that particular time. I'd quite like to be able to switch off, actually, the times in OmniFocus, and I'd like to be able to just kind of drag and rearrange. Sorry, I've done that one. Yeah. But I like this arrangement for the forecast view, except this is going to sound really bad. I'm sorry about this. Lately, I've noticed I will come to a day in forecast. It will be showing me 35 to 45 things to do. Now, I mean, a lot of them are things where it's look at, see, does this need to be done yet? The Writers Guild work, for example. Is there a project that I need to be on top of? And so it's a very quick, no, not today, usually. But still, I end up with a lot of things that I have to do. I worked it out. There are 12 things I have to do every weekday. And they're obviously all in OmniFocus. And it can be a bit overwhelming when I get up at about 5 a.m. I try to do you see this thing, I've already done it, so it's gone. An hour's script writing for it. I do that first. And then I look at OmniFocus. Then I look at the calendars. And still, it's a bit daunting. So that's when I have... currently, my favorite perspective is this thing called first 10. I will look at the 40 if it's really as much as that and go, well, these are the ones that I've got to get done first, obviously, but also the ones that I'll feel better getting out of the way, or the ones that people are really waiting on for me. And I will just tag them as first 10. It does tend to be 10. I've done, one day there was only 8, well, nothing wrong with that. Once there was a bit more than 10. And actually, when I did 15 first 10s, this stopped being useful. So I tried to get a bit more ruthless. And in that case, I would say, forget those other 5. I'm not even going to look at them today. These are the crucial ones. And then I go through and I get rid of them. This one here, reading a Jane Austen letter. I'm reading Jane Austen's letters. It's hardly an important task. Well, it is actually to me, but it's purely for pleasure. I realize, Tim, you said that thing about work-life balance. So it's always been work for me. There's very little life side. It's all part of it. So I really responded to what you said there. And I'm trying to get me to do non-work things. And that's one of them. I am reading one of Jane Austen letters a day, and I have for about 102 days. No, I'm not sure. So I can tell you that I'm a writer. I don't tend to quote people very often, but last week I was reading this letter. It's a very ordinary domestic letter to her sister. And in the middle of it, she's really grumpy. She says, I'm in no humor to write. I must write on until I am. 200 years ago, she nailed what it's like for me sometimes. So it's important to me to relish a few moments with Jane Austen letter, and I tick it to tell myself yes, I've done it, it's off the list. And also I've achieved a non-work thing. And in theory, as soon as I tick it off the first 10 list, it goes off the first 10, and I can see a reasonably short list become ever shorter, and I feel better. And when it gets down to nothing, I allow myself to then look at the rest. And frankly, I come to it thinking, I've done all right here. I've done the 10 that mattered. What can I knock off next, kind of thing? The pressure of the morning feels like it's just gone a little bit. This is my current obsession. I've been using First 10 for a couple of months. I've been trying different combinations of things. I had a this week kind of perspective, and I just wasn't using it. I haven't been using perspectives very much for my different clients, I suppose. AppleInsider, yes, I have various AppleInsider perspectives, but in the end, there's just one I tend to go to. So I haven't been using that. I've been going to that project and focusing on a little bit, which, funny enough, after all these years, focusing is quite a new thing for me. Did I just not notice it before? But clicking on a project and saying, this is all I want to see for now, is really helping me concentrate. I mentioned that I'm responding to your work life and the holistic approach, but also what I really, really liked there was that one where you're doing the 25 minutes periods. Lots of writers use the Pomodoro 25 minutes on, 5 minutes off thing. I work in hours. Very few of the things I do can be done in one sitting, but I can usually get a lot done in an hour. So I have this thing that I will pick something off the list that's bigger than reading a letter, and I will work at that and only that for 60 minutes. And I mean 60, not 59, not 61. The reason really it's most effective in writing, you're doing this and you come to about 20 minutes into the hour or maybe 40 minutes and you are spent. That's enough. There isn't a single word more you can get out of it. But if you stubbornly press on to the top of the hour, to the 60th minute, sometimes what you come up with in that last bit is the best thing you've written. Not all the time, unfortunately. In fact, not even all that often, but often enough that I keep doing it. And worst case, it was rubbish. It was terrible. You still feel pretty good for getting to the top of the hour. And you stop at the 60th minute. You don't go even 1 minute further, because if it's going horribly, well, let yourself off. Go have a cup of tea. If it's gone really well, then you're at that top of the hour. You want to carry on. You want to keep doing it. But if you did, you'd write until you stopped being into it. It would kind of sooner or later start tailing off. So in that case, you would leave it feeling spent again, and you wouldn't really want to pick it up next time, but you leave it on the 60 and you're into it, you're keen to come back. And so the next day or the next session you do with it, you rush into it. And I find that the energy flow for it. The hour isn't part of OmniFocus. I don't ever set one of the estimated durations for things. That just seems like too fiddly for me. I'd be really interested to know if anybody finds it deeply useful and I'm wrong. But for me, it's just got to be done. And I don't care how long it takes, except I like spending these hours on things.
Just to chime in for a moment, just a couple of questions. First of all, I'm curious if you always had that 60-minute sort of work window, or did you kind of build up to it, or did you used to do longer sort of sprints, or how did that sort of evolve over time?
I promise I didn't arrange this, but I read a book, I can't remember when it was, something like 2013, 2014, and it was about productivity for writers in particular, 2013. And I didn't develop it for then. I'd already got it by then, and I was trying it, and I ran some workshops and tried it out with other people. And it was like set in stone in 2013 for me. But up to then, I did experiment. I've very good friends who do the 25-minute thing, and I just find it's too easy, really. The thing with writing is, especially as a freelance writer, I've been freelance since 1994. So There have been times when I haven't put the work in, or worse, I've had a really good client. Like when I worked for the BBC, I think of it that I worked for the BBC, but strictly speaking, I worked for three totally different areas of it, and they all ended at the same time. I had not put the effort in to always look for the next job. And so now since then, whenever that was, I spend a little amount of time each week always thinking about what the next thing is. And it seems to me that an hour works for that. An hour breaks the back of horrible things. Like, I'm rubbish with finances, but if I spend an hour on my taxes, I get so far through it and I'm feeling very smug. And then, when you're enjoying something, like, and my favorite thing, my absolute favorite thing is to be what's called in script. You've gone past. Well, I don't like planning, but sometimes you're contractually obliged to provide a plan, an outline, or a treatment. And at some point, you get to writing the actual script, and it is utter bliss. It is the best thing in the world. 5 o'clock in the morning, you get up and you climb into this world you're creating, and I just can't get enough of it. I could go on all day, and sometimes under deadlines, I have gone on all day, but I am best if I limit even that to an hour. I think it varies incredibly, but I'm glad I found the hour for me. It's made a massive difference. I was just thinking, I just said I'd go all day. It's been a while since I've had to do all day on one project. I've had the luxury of one day, one project, but my record is I can write 10,000 words of nonfiction a day, or about 20 pages of screenplay a day, for maybe 20 days in a row, and then I collapse and I'm useless and things. So when necessary, I'll do a lot more than 1 hour, but the optimum for me is that. I wish I remember how I found it, but I'm very glad.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. There's something, it sounds like there's that victory of kind of pushing through resistance within the hour, knowing that you've committed to an hour, even if you're sort of struggling at the beginning. And another piece I really like about that is finishing on a high note as well, getting to the end of the hour and really wanting to keep going. To me, that's almost like some motivation has been put into a bottle that you can unleash again, and kind of looking forward to getting going on it again, when your next sort of work block comes along, versus kind of dreading, spending another hour. So I think there's a lot of wisdom in that.
There's this one script I was writing earlier on in the year, a thing that actually went wrong, a project that went wrong. But before it went wrong, I would have the simultaneous thing that I was looking forward to the next session so much. And also I had no idea how I was going to solve, really serious problems with it. It's hard to explain without telling you the whole story for it. But there were like technical problems as well as writing problems and things I was trying so hard to convey. There were a couple of times where I'd actually wake up in the morning shaking because I've been so worried about it overnight. So I was slightly push-pull, got to get to the keys, terrified of getting to the keys. It was absolutely fantastic. I think I lost weight during it, so maybe that was also another good thing. Okay, yeah. So yes, my hours things, the obsession bit, and I would say that I obviously seem to live by hours where I can. I tried doing half hours just to get more stuff out of the way, and it didn't work at all. The thing I am falling down on is spending an hour doing reviews. I have OmniFocus set to remind me to do a review first thing Monday and about mid-afternoon on Friday. You'd think I'd remember when it is, but I keep skipping the Friday one when it comes up. So that's not great. And quite often I skip the Monday one as well. And invariably, this, it's part of OmniFocus, part of GTD. If you don't keep up the reviews, things get worse, and they really do. The work gets gummed up and you get miserable going in for it. What again, considering I've been using this for a decade, I'm only slowly changing things. I am trying to set it as each review comes up and I go through a project. I'm trying to be much more ruthless about deciding how often I want to be reminded of it. I have a shopping list. And people say you shouldn't keep shopping in OmniFocus, but why not? I do everything else in there. But I don't need to be reminded to review that every week. So that one was the first that you you have to set a review period. I've said, show me that every year. And every year when it comes up, I will just say, yes, that's very nice, and move on.
A couple of questions about your first 10. First of all, Jeff has a question. Do you clear the first 10 tags every night if you don't get them done so that they don't build up, or have an automation that does that perhaps? So assuming you don't, let's say you didn't get to these last 3 today or some other ones on your list, what would happen to those? Would they get bumped to tomorrow automatically?
This is going to sound weird, but it's never been a problem. I've always cleared the first 10. There are first 10 for lots of reasons, but mostly because they are so important. They've got to be done today. Something shouldn't be in forecast if it doesn't have to be done today, but these are very have to be done. So since I came up with the first 10, I have yet to fail doing it.
When you're giving them that tag, you're confident that you can actually get them done. It's not a sort of an aspirational sort of thing going on your list.
No, definitely not aspirational, but it's less confidence, more that they are mandatory for it. I was starting to say, though, it's not entirely true. There was one couple of weeks ago where I did all of my bits, but I had to wait for somebody else. That was part of the task. And I didn't really know what to do then. So I left it as first 10, and each day I'd come back, there it was still coming up the works for me. Actually, Tim, you helped me with this. My first 10 things originally, most of these first 10s are quite repetitive things. There's an amazing number of things I have to keep doing over and over. And I don't always want them to be in the first 10, though. And I was finding I would click it as done, and it would come back immediately. So I then have to separately remove the first 10 in case I don't need it next time. And you were showing me about, I hadn't set the availability correctly. The first 10 has to be tagged first 10, has to be due today, has to be available today. And by changing that to making sure that it was set for today, as soon as I would tick check balances, for example, it should have just gone off for it. I don't know what. This is not my real OmniFocus database. This is a copy of it, which I've got to say, by the way, it was terrifying. Deleting all my tasks this morning was just utterly frightening.
You have a backup, though. Yep.
Oh, many backups.
Many backups.
I restored them several times, and I kept this machine off syncing on all of these things, but I was pale this morning. I don't know why it hasn't worked then, but normally what would happen is that check balances would go. It would go, but it would still retain the first 10 tag. It wasn't first 10 and today's date. So when it comes to tomorrow, suddenly that one will be back in there, and I might not want it. So I would then choose to get rid of the first 10 tag. There are 10 things that are more important. I would really like an automation that if I ticked it as done in first 10, it also removed the tag. And I don't know how to do that. If you do, I am, hello, looking at you, trying to read everybody's face.
Maybe we'll get one of our plugin experts like Caitlin on that one. She might even have something already that takes care of that in a similar sort of way anyway. Just another question too, and I think this maybe ties into review as well, is you have a lot of other actions in OmniFocus that aren't first 10. What's your kind of process for beyond the first 10 for making sure that you're kind of moving the needle on those other things in OmniFocus as well? So I know there's common sort of concern that I hear from people is I'm going to put something into OmniFocus, then I won't see it ever again, or I'll see it, when it's too late or something like that. So how do you make sure that sort of the actions and projects get the appropriate amount of attention?
This is going to go slightly against what I just said about my not doing reviews often enough. I think ultimately, even if I fall off the wagon and come back on again, I do them ultimately enough that I am aware for a brief while of everything that's on my plate. And I know that it's all in OmniFocus. And I spend quite a bit of time, not in a very consistent way, but a bit of time working out when certain things are likely to have to be done. And most things don't have a date on them, but I know I will catch them, and OmniFocus will have them all hidden away in there. I'm going to admit that I tidied up my folder list, you see down the side here. I would keep creating, Dark Ride is my company name, but there are clients I have down here. They were kind of down the bottom of the list. And so even when I was doing a review, there were some clients I would forget and things. So actually, even just preparing to talk to you, got a bit more organized in where I put things. And even though I try not to think about that once it's done, and I trust OmniFocus to have everything, I feel more comfortable currently in knowing everything is not only in there, but in a certain place. And as well, there's this thing, isn't it? That if you use just one to-do app, you know where you put everything, but you also know where to look for the next thing. And I'm finding now with a more organized structure for it that I know the project as well, the project to put it in and the project to look at it for. And a lot of my stuff is kind of externally driven. AppleInsider has lots of projects and news deadlines that suddenly come up. The Writers Guild has certain events that somebody else might organize, but I'll be required to help out. When they come in, those are the ones that tend to come in with certain times, and I rely on that. And the rest, as long as when I do the review, I can see I have moved enough things on, I tend to be happy enough with it. Was that an excuse or an answer? I'm not 100% sure.
Well, it sounds like the review is a really key piece, because that's just using that diligently means you won't forget about things. And then also just the way you've got things organized for you. And I know you're used to working in OmniOutliner as well, too. So just sort of, it sounds like you kind of naturally glance at the project lists very often and just kind of see the menu of activities that's presented to you. Yes,
it's OmniFocus is open all the time on all of my machines. Even when I'm using focus mode and switching off everything else, OmniFocus is like a mandatory thing there. It might be hidden in the background, but it's always there, and I'm always back and forth to it. It's like a constant friend. And I had an argument that it shouldn't be. You should look at it first thing in the morning, last thing in the day, and in between, do your work. But maybe because so much of my stuff is very bitty, I don't go back in after every single task, and it's deeply satisfying when I do a review and I come to it and I can see 30 things that I have done. Ticking that is good. I like that. Maybe I'm just storing up more. If I delay the review for long enough, but I keep working, I might get more of that pleasure. I might have 60 things to do next time. That's when I will lose control of what's going on. I'll tell you one thing I've realized, how to explain this. I have no faith or no religion, but I have certain beliefs. And one of them is that the show comes first. Whatever has to be done to get the work, the show, whether it's actually a show like a theatre production that I've worked on or a radio thing, or just an event, whatever it needs comes first. And I like that, and I learned it through the BBC work, and everybody on the production felt the same. It was very collegiate. You were giving yourself up something bigger than you, and it really mattered. But as I've got older, even though I still believe that entirely, I am vastly more ruthless about what shows I take on. I've got to really think it matters before I add it to the pile, to my life, to my writing, to OmniFocus. I said earlier, the answer is yes to everything. And then that's still a bit of it, but I turn down a lot of things now. I say no more often than I ever did now. And maybe part of that is because of OmniFocus, I'm more aware of the spread of the plate. I'm certainly much more familiar now with how long things are going to take. Like I say, I don't do the duration thing, but I know a theatre production is going to take this long. I know an event production is going to take that long and involve this many people for it. I have a sense of the scale, and before I say yes, I'm not as automatic as I used to be. So, oh God, I'm getting old and mature, aren't I?
I think that's one of the most challenging things in productivity, is estimating how long things will take, and that's where experience really comes into play, because you've been through so many sort of similar scenarios before, and it sounds like you've really developed a good sense of how long things are going to take and what's worth doing and what's not worth doing. And so I think maybe when people are sort of earlier on in their productivity journal, they need to think that through more systematically. But then as people get more experienced as you have, then you can kind of almost intuitively know what look at something and know how complex it is and how long it's going to take. And there's not as much value in estimating individual actions and things like that.
No, you saw one, read a Jane Austen letter. I read at 600 words a minute, something ludicrously fast. If it takes me more than 3 minutes to read a chapter of a Jane Austen novel, then there's something wrong. So I could put 3 minutes in there. Checking the balances. My online bank here in the UK is rubbish. So some days that's 6 minutes in and out. Other times it is a lot longer. But I mean, the one we've got on the screen here, this example, the fastest I've ever done a 58 Keys episode was 90 minutes from having the idea through writing the script, filming, editing, and starting the upload to YouTube. But then there was another one that took me, it was a total of 8 days and something close to 40 hours of editing. It was a 90-minute special, if you like. And what I hope you would notice is that there must have been something like 180 cuts or additions to the video for it, and each one had to be placed on the right frame, or it just wasn't funny and things like that. I look at this list here and I can't really estimate how long. Maybe producing the metadata, I know how long it takes me to make the poster of an idea, how long it takes me to run. But like I say, I know they've got to be done, and in this case I know they've got to be done in that sequence, which helps me a lot. You mentioned OmniOutliner. I find I said 900 events. There's probably 800 of them have been planned in OmniOutliner, because I will knock out one idea and then think what's got to come before it, what's got to come afterwards. I will massage the project out into a list. And then when I think that's the right order, when I work out the dependencies, if you like, in it, then I pop it into OmniFocus. But actually, the truth is I only ever tried OmniOutliner because I loved OmniFocus so much. I wanted to see what else the company did. And now I'm kind of obsessed about them both.
So is OmniOutliner essentially a planning tool that leads you to creating the OmniFocus project?
Yes, and because I'm actually, I said I don't like planning. I don't like outlining either. It's you've got to sometimes, and it's a bad habit. I would rather write something, and if it's rubbish, throw it away, try again. And I've done that. I've done that a lot. In 2020, during the lockdowns, I wrote a 100,000 word novel, and at the start of 2021, I threw it all away because it was so bad for it. But, when I can face trying it again, it'll be better. With OmniOutliner, I will write stories in it. I'll write articles in it a lot by accident. I'll think, what's this paragraph got to be? And then without thinking, I've hit return and written the next paragraph and the next, and I've done it. But by far, the biggest thing is I plan out events in it. I'm going into a school tomorrow, and the plan for it's very, very flexible. But I have a list of all the things they've asked me to do at the top, all the things I want to achieve in it. None of that will go into OmniFocus. But I can't tell you what it is, but there's another project. I've been asked to do a confidential thing where I started with no idea. So I wrote it on the outline of what they wanted, and what do I know? And then what don't I know? What do I need to find out? And that became a 15 or 20 item OmniOutliner list. And I put those into OmniFocus. Changed them when they went in there to make them more active. So rather than what don't I know, it's find out about X, talk to Y about it. It became more actionable tasks. But the top of my head went into OmniOutliner, and that shaped it. You mentioned MindNode earlier. I've often used MindNode as well if it's a more visual thing. But for me, I was going to say the ultimate result is put it in OmniFocus. It isn't true. The ultimate result is to get it done. But that means going into OmniFocus first and processing it there. And I'll need things in OmniFocus. I'll move them around a bit. But maybe because this thing of I like being able to drag things up and down as I'm thinking about the order of it, I enjoy that more in OmniOutliner. For it.
I think that's you really point to a key difference between those tools, because on the surface they seem somewhat similar, but I'd find OmniFocus is not a good place to plan, and OmniOutliner is not the best place to keep track of tasks. So they're very, very much complementary apps, and you can. I find when I use OmniOutliner or MindNode, I can be a lot more free form with my ideas. I can just kind of play with things. I don't need to even think about, are they feasible? Does it make sense? Do I even want to include them? Sometimes I'll even list concerns that I have in there that, I'll kind of check them off as they're addressed. But then OmniFocus becomes the defined work. And if you were to try to merge those two apps into one, I think that's where it becomes unmanageable, because you get sort of random ideas mixed in with, well-defined actions, and it can just be kind of the soup of commitments and ideas and things like that. And that's where I see a lot of people getting stuck. So I think having a tool like OmniOutliner and MindNode as part of pretty much anybody's system is essential, whether you're planning your summer vacation or your next novel or whatever it happens to be, just a place where you can kind of ideate and get your thoughts straight and figure out what is the actual work.
I just switched to my someday project. This is blank, not because this is my like a stunt copy in my database, but because it's always blank. I used to put things in there and I figured, well, if they're that important, they'll come up somewhere else, and I deleted them. And I used to always have a story pot where if I thought of just a line of dialogue or a character or a scene, I would put that in there. And at the time, it seemed to make sense because I'm living in OmniFocus, where things go. But then it came to the review stage, and there'd be 30 little scrappy lines of dialogue, and some of them were quite funny, actually. I was pleased to see them again, but there were nothing I could actually do or use. There might be something that would come into a script in a year's time. So I took all of those out, and I put those in Apple Notes and things. So OmniFocus, I've tried to describe it once. It's not a to-do app, it's a can-do app. These are the things you can do. These are things you can do now. These are things you could do when you've got a few minutes spare. It's less didactic than a to-do list. It's a tool to work with you. And like I said at the start, it feels like it's a friend, and fortunately a friend that doesn't always feel very judging when it comes up with time to do things. It does feel
that's a great distinction, because I know there's things in my OmniFocus database that I'm never going to do, and they seem like a great idea a week ago or a month ago or something like that. So yeah, seeing it more as these are things that you could do, you may not do. And David Allen talks about this as well. Just get over that you're going to get everything done on your to-do list, and that's never going to happen. It becomes more of a kind of a menu of, these are things you can do, and some of them are going to be time critical, as you were saying, like in the top 10, or the first 10 rather. And other ones are going to be, just work that maybe never gets done and loses its importance over time, I imagine.
I said that most of the things I do can't be done in one sitting, but actually I'm thinking of, you'll never write a script in one go. You'll never produce an event in one go, but there's so many different bits of it that you can. And the thing I have learned is do them. This thing I'm doing now, finish it before you do something else. So did I say about 80 emails for the Writers Guild when I took over as deputy chair? Well, there was a concomitant result of that, which was about 90 replies, which all had to be dealt with in a certain way. I'm actually compiling some information. And that was a really daunting thing. And so last Friday, I did the first 20 of the 90 and sent that off to the other people I need to work with. And I thought I'd do this in batches. But then when it came to the Monday, I realized it was useless sending them the 20 because they can't do anything until they've got it all. Or if they did, it might be missed and wasted. So I sat there, and even though I was under time pressure for other projects, I made sure I finished the whole 90. When that was done, obviously I felt great. So relieved as well. And unfortunately, it's led to another part, but I'll worry about that then. The difference is that's done and gone, and I don't have to think about it. Where if I swap and change a lot and do a little bit on this project and a little bit on that idea, I used to have this thing where I write emails a lot, and I love emails, but I'll spend a long time on them if necessary. And I might just go off and do something else halfway through while I try to think of a good paragraph. I won't do that now. I will sit there until I finish the email. I might not send it straight away. I might keep it to review later and think about it, but I won't wander off for a cup of tea in the middle of it. I will get it finished. And a long way towards that was the fact that then I can tick it off in OmniFocus.
One question in general is your use of tags. I know you've got the one for the first 10. Are you using tags in general? Or do you have things tagged according to contexts and things like that? Or what does your overall use of tags look like?
Funny you said that about context, because I used to completely believe the one context thing was a really good idea. And when OmniFocus changed that and that you have tags instead, I thought, never going to use that. Oh, except actually this one I can just tag as waiting, and that one I've slipped a bit, but quite often I'll tag something as reading or research or email, so that I can then just look at all the reading I've got to do, all the emails I've got to do. I can't remember how many tags I've got, but I probably intelligently use about 6 of them for different things, and rarely in combination. A first 10 and waiting is about the only 2 that go together, and I don't tend to sort very much by them. But I'm total convert to tags now. I think my discipline notwithstanding, they're a really good thing.
And curious if you actually block time off on your calendar. Like, do you block off those hours, or do you just kind of do it more organically? Yeah. Okay.
There are certain things, like if I'm writing for AppleInsider on a particular day, even though I'm a feature writer and sometimes news writer, in theory, I suppose you could do it at any time, and I might well get asked at any time to write something if they know it's something I know, but they tend to like me to be around for certain hours. So that blocks out things the other way. I know I can't extend an hour into that period. I can't start an hour until afterwards. So there's a kind of default knock on for it. But the hours, the most important thing to me, the hour script writing, which is usually on the next project, not a commission, that I will desperately try to do it in the morning. It will tend to be somewhere between 5 a.m. and 7 a.m., depending on when I can get up off the bed to do it. But whenever I start it, then it's 60 minutes. I set a timer on my phone. I set a focus mode that switches off everything. And at the end of 60 minutes, when that alarm goes off, whatever time it is, it's done.
Yeah. Okay. So you don't have like strict borders around time, but there is a kind of an innate routine that some point during this window in the morning, you want to dedicate that hour to the writing.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think about it. Should I have a chart on the wall actually with an old iPad, and I've been looking at resurrecting a thing I had of actually a schedule on the week. It's like a stripe through the day of this is the hour for it. But so many things change about, and I change about things that it hasn't worked for me in the past. Can't rule out that it would, and I see a benefit, but at the moment, no.
And Paul is asking, what is your use case of perspectives to organize your tasks? Are there other perspectives you use regularly, or is it more focused on the first 10?
I realized before I created the database to show you that I must have 15 perspectives, but in most cases, they were really useful for a while and then they've stopped being useful. And actually a surprising number were variants on what ultimately became the first 10. So I should probably clear them out more. I think I'm finding recently that focusing on a project is more useful to me than perspective just at the moment. But I mean, perspectives, aren't they an incredible thing? How did I ever use to do that without them? I don't know.
Sometimes I'll even create kind of like throwaway perspectives where I just need them for the day or something like that. I need this view into OmniFocus, then I just can delete them when I'm done. So they can be used in that way for sure. Mm-hmm. Patrick's wondering, could you explain the secret behind sequentially numbering your episodes?
Oh, Patrick, thank you. I'm so proud of this. The key is a text file, has to be plain text file, must be on iCloud Drive, because I could be accessing it from my iPhone, my iPad, or any of my Macs. It's got to be there. And it's just a shortcut that opens the file, reads the text, because the text is always a number, reads it as a number, adds 1, and saves it back. There's no security, no locking on it. If for some reason I tried to do it on 2 machines at the same time, I have no idea what would happen, but I never do. I'm always doing it on 1. And I do have things like this. If when I was testing it out, I kept adding episode numbers and eventually remembered that I wasn't doing that many and had to scale it back. But it's just a question of opening the text file and changing the number to what you want it to be. I should point out also, it's very specifically production order numbers. Like 174 is the latest real one. There aren't 174 episodes out. There's something like 140 or something. So it will go in to help me later with scheduling and things. So I suppose, do I need a number? No, but I really like it. And when I figured out how to make it work, I was so smug. It was just unbearable.
Yeah, very clever. Yeah. And so that does that number appear in the folder that gets created, or the,
oh yeah,
and so it's kind of an identifier that ties together the project and the
ultimately
project support material.
Even in Final Cut Pro, I have this is less automatic because you film something later when you're down the process, but I use the number in the file name. So I have different assets. So there's main footage, there's B-roll. It will be 175 B-roll and then the name, 175 screen recording and this. And it goes into a screen recording, 175 screen recording folder, 175 screen recording B-roll and stuff. I drag them into all those places, and then it makes editing in the end, for the type of thing I do, really fast. I'm so much faster at editing because of that discipline.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And if you are using a variety of different apps, it's just a nice way to tie them together, because, you can search for that unique number and find the project. You can find the OmniOutliner file, etc. So I think it's a great practice. Mm-hmm. And it's I'm sure it feels good to see that number go up and up too. So there's a kind of a sense of accomplishment that comes from that, I imagine.
There are 7 pilot episodes that will never be seen, and we don't talk about them, but they're still counted in the 175. Okay.
Yeah, and hopefully there was still some value in creating them, even if they didn't get seen. Jacob is asking, Outliner better alternative to Logseq? That's not LOGSEQ. That's not one I've come across. So.
No, nor me.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say yes. Yes. Because OmniOutliner is so good, it must be.
And one nice thing about using OmniOutliner is if you're already familiar with OmniFocus, it feels right at home. A lot of the keyboard shortcuts are the same. So I find mentally it's easy to make the transition between the two.
Oh, I see. It's like Obsidian.
Okay.
I've also used OmniPlan, actually, when it's I've had to work with other people. And I find there are significant differences, but there's similarities with OmniFocus and OmniOutliner. I like OmniPlan a lot, although I kind of misuse the power a little bit. I had this project that started, and I loved it, and it came way back. Over 3 years, this thing kept coming up, and I was always ready to do it, and then somebody wouldn't be, and so on. And then when it came up and it was finally definitely going to be done, I was the one that was busy doing other things. But it fell to me to organize it, and I did a Gantt chart, dependencies, I rigged everything to produce this beautiful set of documents that basically made everybody else's jobs come before mine, knowing at least one of them wouldn't do it, and I'd never be worried about it again. Absolutely worked perfectly. It was. I don't think Omni's going to put that as a recommended use case, but it worked for me. So.
Yeah, no, then that's very much being in the planning phase. That's the value of just seeing those dependencies and things like that can, I think, avoid a lot of frustration and things like that, just to take that time to.
First of all, thanks so much for coming on. It's been great to kind of hear about your workflow and how everything fits together for you and has evolved. You briefly mentioned Obsidian, I think, and I'm wondering if you have any other just applications that you love to use that you'd like to mention.
Oh, right, Tim. Can we double the length of this at all?
Yeah, right there. Yeah. Might need a part 2, but maybe if you want to share some of your favorites there, I'd be really curious to hear them as well.
I'm looking down at my doc for this. Obsidian is one I tried. We mentioned it just a moment ago in the list as it being like this Logseq that I don't know at all, and we'll immediately go off to investigate. I didn't tend to get into it much, but I haven't properly tried it. Similarly with Notion, I thought there was an awful lot to like in Notion, but I wandered away from it. Keyboard Maestro is just incredibly important to me. One example, I work on AppleInsider.com, and by the end of a busy day, I might have 30 images open in Pixelmator Pro, and I don't need any of them anymore. I've saved them in the format that's been published and all that. I just need to close those tabs. And I suppose I should be more organized and close them when I'm done. But instead, it's like close. No, I don't want to save. Close. No, I don't want to save. Nah. 2 buttons in Keyboard Maestro. Hits the close button, finds the don't save button. And I just go pop, 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 pop. And I watch them all close. And it is so relaxing to see it happen like that. When I'm running a workshop where there are timed events and things, I use this tiny utility called HB Clock. If you remember back in the day of the very first OS 10, you could have an analog clock on screen all the time, and it's like that. I have this 49-inch monitor, and the clock in the menu bar is like half a mile over there sometimes, so it's very useful having that. It's a tiny little thing. Otter.ai, incredibly useful. I was going to say Alfred again. Everything comes back to Alfred. I love the clipboard manager in Alfred. There's one job I have where I might have to pick out 5 different things from a legal document in different orders and use them in one place. And it's just like copy, 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 paste in one go. Oh, just brilliant. VLC, use that a lot because I get a lot of screeners and different things like this. Plex, because I have a massive collection of videos I've been slowly doing. I'm sorry, I'm going to wear you out if I keep doing this.
And maybe touching on the writing apps that you use as part of your writing workflows.
That's a sensible thing. Why didn't I go there first? I was thinking of utilities. Yeah. I like Pages. I love Scrivener. It's not very clear to me sometimes when I choose which app over which. Final Draft is an obvious one. I do certain types of scripts in there. Scrivener, the 100,000 word novel was in that, and I wouldn't do it anywhere else. Pages seems to be where I did the radio script for it. I'd also write a lot in OmniOutliner, and I write most articles in Drafts 5. For some reason, I found on the iPhone, most of all, I just enjoy writing in drafts. And then when it came to the Mac, it was the obvious thing to go for. And somehow I don't quite enjoy it as much there. But it's my favorite for just getting on with plain text articles and things. And I'm incredibly badly disorganized. You look at the long list of drafts and different literal drafts and half versions of things. But I like the sense of getting on with the writing. And this is it for me in technology in general. I suppose I am a fan of technology, but I'm a fan of what it lets me do. This is why I don't use Windows. I don't want to think about viruses and fiddling with this. I just want to do the thing. And with the Mac, and particularly, and also iPhone and iPad, you just get on with what you want to do. And Drafts feels like it suits me in that line. Just start it up, go, get on with the writing, which is what matters to me.
Yeah, that's a great distinction, because I know it's easy to get caught up in the technology itself and forget kind of the marvel of a creative tool it is that makes all of this possible. And that's something I've really honed in myself too, is if I'm doing like an automation or something, I want to kind of imagine the joy that I get every time I trigger it on my Stream Deck or something like that, versus I think when in learning mode, it can be useful just to do some more proof of concept, but there's something about it leading to a creative result that I think is very satisfying ultimately.
You saw that I have a check balances thing. Well, I have a number spreadsheet, and I'm running a business. I have different accounts. At the end of it, I put everything in numbers, but then I highlight it all, and I do a Keyboard Maestro keystroke, and it uses regex to go through and take out this row, each entry, and put it into a text expander created email with headings next to it that it then sends off to my bookkeeper. And to know that just watching that happen, I honestly could not tell you how to do the regex anymore, but I learned it then to do that, and it's always there. Which reminds me, at 6 o'clock every day, something happens in OmniFocus. It does a backup somewhere, and I cannot remember where I started at or why I did it, but I'll be in the middle of writing a task and ba-dung, it's off, backing up something. So maybe I should make better notes. That's what I'm learning.
Well, thank you so much, William, for everything you shared today. Definitely a lot of great wisdom, not just around OmniFocus, but on your approach to life and work. And I'm definitely taking some valuable takeaways today. So really appreciate that. And thanks to everyone who joined us live for all the great questions. And thanks to all of you who are watching a recording of this session as well. And I hope to see you at one of the live sessions, whether it's one of the kind of theme sessions or maybe office hours or virtual co-working. And take care, everyone, and bye for now.